Welcome back, friends, to Divine Feminine Radio, your weekly sanctuary of divine conversation. I am your host, Ronnie Kala. I have been activating the Divine Feminine for 5 years. Here today with Tamara Rose. She has been deconstructing the patriarchy and activating the Divine Feminine for 15 years. She's the founder of the Beyond Human Method and also my sister. Tamara, I thought we would dive into an interesting conversation today, since all of the toxic framework that we've been living in, there are particular things that we've taken on and particular ways of being that we've had to endure from being in this particular framework. And so we thought we'd share these 5 to 7 things with you all today and how we can move past them, live beyond them. Tamara, what do you think?
I mean, let's be real. It's probably more than 5, but we're just going to look at these 5, shall we?
Very true. Top 5, we'll say.
Top 5.
All right. So very first one, I think we can all recognize, especially as women in business, entrepreneurs or business owners, success through sacrifice. Like, we have been taught that in order to be successful, we have to sacrifice our health, our well-being, our relationships, our time, something else. And there's this paradigm of, in order to have it all, we have to do it all. And really, like, this, it doesn't work anymore. That's all I have to say.
Well, I think it's like when we talk to our clients and we say, hey, if you had it all your way, you know, what is having it all your way look like? Or what does having it all look like? You know, you can actually have it all, meaning we don't have to sacrifice. And I think what's fascinating is when people first hear that, before they start working with us, they're like, I don't want it all. I don't want it all, because what's linked to all is more doing, more sacrifice. I have to give something up. Like, I'm literally already stretched too thin. I feel burned out. I'm crashing and burning, because in a patriarchal framework, our worth and our value is tied to doing. So the more that we do, the more value we have. So if we want to have more or have everything we want, then we have to do it, which is not the truth. It's not how we coach. It's not like the framework of the Divine Feminine, but it is kind of that toxic, already established system, if you will.
Totally. And I think if we look even further, like, why does success through sacrifice come through patriarchy? Like, why is that created inside of this system?
Well, let's be real. Success through sacrifice is only for women. Men don't sacrifice anything in their success, because the system is built for them. It was built by them. It was built for them, whether they know it or not. But, you know, they don't have to sacrifice anything to get success, because women inherently have been holding up all the other structures for them or for humanity in general, right? So, you know, that's when we're talking about the mental load and the second shift. And so if women are, you know, they want success, they have to do it on top of everything else they're doing, right? One of my clients, you know, as she's been deconstructing this and we've been having intimate conversations, is looking at the fact that, like, well, if I can do it, I should do it. Meaning, like, well, I can take out the garbage, so I should take out the garbage, because that's what feminism means. And it's like, you know, I love that we have more rights as women, but the part where in feminism, where we're in relationships and we're doing more because we can do more, that's kind of the breakdown where we've gotten to, where something's got to give. And now we have to sacrifice something, right? And I think that is, you know, there are women out there who they don't have kids, they're not married, they're not sacrificing much. They're just kind of doing what they want. You know what I mean? And so I think it is this stronghold when women are in relationships to be the emotional support, like, do the mental load, like, be also 50% of the labor, but because intuitively we know things, we just kind of take on more too.
For sure. And that's an interesting point that you make, that men aren't really the ones that have to sacrifice their for their success either. And it's, I think it also goes back to, like, women haven't been in business or like had these rights as long as men. So when women have only been able to own their business for less than 40 years, like, without a man on the table, or like have their own credit card or have their own bank account, like, took on, like, there's only been a couple of generations of women who've been able to do that so far. And so in learning that and taking that on and having those freedoms, like, we, 100 years ago, where women were running the household and they couldn't work and they were in charge of the kids. And so women had all these responsibilities, and then we were able to go to work and like own our own businesses, but we didn't share any of those responsibilities with our spouse. Like, we kept the same, and then we added on to the load, and then like the load never shifted necessarily.
Well, yeah. And, for our listeners, that's what happens when you don't change the framework, right? So you're in a toxic framework. It doesn't work. So we change one thing, but we're still in the toxic framework. So the framework is still not working for everybody involved. So you have to change the framework in order to actually thrive with the newfound freedoms. So if you say, okay, well, rewind 50 years, 50 years, women have more rights and they get to work, but they were also already in charge of household duties. They were also already in charge of the children. So you go, okay, well, you're in charge of the household duties. You're in charge of the children. You're in charge of like managing everything, but now you want to work outside the house. Well, you can do that. You can do that. No problem. Please go do that. But it wasn't men taking over some of the other responsibilities. So it was on top of, and that's the toxic framework. Like, we didn't change the framework. We didn't train men in how to care for the house, or how to take on the mental load, or how to think about everybody in community, or, do the emotional labor. None of that was trained and taught. And so if none of that is trained and taught, then women are just taking on more and more and more for their freedom, for their rights, so that they can be equals. But we didn't go back to the basics. Like, what is the framework we're building on? And so that's really where that, the burnout comes from, right? And now we have to sacrifice something. We're going to sacrifice our needs for our children. We're going to sacrifice our well-being and our health and our peace of mind so that we can juggle it and do it all and have it all, quote unquote.
Totally.
Yeah.
And when we pose the question, like, why are women so burned out? It's because of this. It's because of these responsibilities that we had that were never like shifted, or we're trying to like add more on top of the same framework. And men don't necessarily have the same. There may be like individual cases, of course, but like if we talk about it in general and as a whole, like, men don't have the same mental load that they're carrying, or emotional load that they're carrying, or like all the different tabs open in our brain that we're like juggling all these different things. Like, we're adding so much on top of all of that. And I think also when we look at contribution and equality, like you mentioned, like feminism and equality, and we want to be equal, I think we're not taking into account the energetic contribution that women have. Like, we're only looking at the physical or 3D contribution, whether it's like taking out the trash or going to work, or the monetary contribution, but we're not looking at it as like a whole. And I'm curious, like, when you sense contribution, Tamara, like there's all these different ways that women contribute. Like, what would you say are like all the different like ways that women actually do contribute, as opposed to the 3D world that we're just looking at?
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. There were so many things that showed up when you were talking another Ogon. But what's really funny is I also find men get into relationships and I hear them say like, I'm looking for my peace, or I really want to be in a relationship and have that peace from a woman. And so I do think that that's something that women bring, is peace, right? And that's like when we juggle everything, when we make everything great, when we make everything good, that's a contribution. But at the same time, like if a man is searching for a woman for his peace, he ain't got no peace. Like now I'm going to go manage that. Do you know what I mean? I think when we look at successful CEOs who are married with kids, those sex, what was I thinking about? That's so weird. Sex. Those successful CEOs most of the time have a wife who is supporting him. So you want to look at the support system from the significant other, right? So the support system from the significant other. So men in relationships thrive, are more successful, make more money, are healthier.
Statistically.
That is not my opinion. That is definitely statistic, right? Like studies show men are happier, healthier, they live longer. Like everything thrives when they are in a relationship with a woman. Where it is statistically, studies show the inverse for women, meaning, right, if a woman is in a relationship, she is more unhealthy, she will die sooner. She's because of that stress of doing it all, right? But so if we're looking at the energetic contribution, there's the support system of the vision, there's the support system of the family, there's the it is inside juggling it all. And it's a lot of times not, I don't think me as a mom and me as a, a divorcee, if you will, I just kind of think of everybody in my sphere and they're all part of my sphere. So I don't have to think about, like, I wonder what it would take to take care of this other person. They're just like, if they're in my sphere, they're taken care of.
Yeah.
Whether that's monetarily, roof over your head, I have resources, you have resources. I never actually think of the resources as my resources. And I think that's an interesting thought when I date men who are single, maybe single dads or no children single. Their resources are theirs until they decide to share them. And that's a fascinating concept. Like I don't have the same purview. Now, I don't know if that's unique to me. I think when I look at women, I think women as a whole, it's not, this is my resource, whether it is money or time or energy or support or whatever. Like, because if I would go to the PTA, it'd be all women because we just contribute our time and we know, like, it's kind of like something's up. We know we need to do something about it. And so, like, for me, inside of a patriarchal system, there's a scarcity of time. There's a scarcity of resources that we're constantly bumping up against, that almost any man I will date or interact with will tell me about it. They will tell me about time. They will tell me about scarcity of resources. They are not in abundance. I think women, in some aspects, it's our divine birthright where we have that abundance mindset. We've just been bamboozled by the patriarchal systems. So we've been bamboozled. So I think it's easier to shift a female mindset, a woman's mindset. And if you're non-binary or transgender, just find your place in this. I'm not saying you're not and who is and da-da-da in parts. I'm not saying that. I'm not having that conversation. But what I am saying is, like, I think it's easier to shift with females, with women, because that is like already inherently there for us. We're already inherently thinking of all. And this isn't all women, all men. Jesus. Okay. Like, gosh, I just have to always preface this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get what you're saying though. There's like for women, there's almost this inherent or maybe general like selflessness, thinking of other people, thinking of kids, thinking of family, like the collective. And like that goes back, I think I bring this up almost every episode, that thing about Elizabeth Gilbert, because it was absolutely brilliant, where women are inherently selfless. So our women's pathway to divinity is to be more selfish. Men start off more selfish, thinking of themselves, thinking of, maybe it's just themselves or maybe it's them and kid, but for the most part, like not having that overarching view for other people or for humanity. And so their pathway to divinity is being more selfless. That's why like Bible was made for men. That's why the Bible always talks about being more selfless. But I think that goes hand in hand with what you're saying about the scarcity. Like if you're only thinking about yourself, like how many resources are there for myself or for my immediate like family, versus like for women, it's like, oh, it's for everybody. So like there's this collective view, and then there's like this abundance mindset or this abundance view that comes with it potentially.
Yeah. And there are tons of stories. Like a woman in her 70s, her husband died and she inherited like $1 billion or some shit like that. And she was like, oh, I'm providing scholarships for New York City school systems or something, like for children. She just set up foundations for like kids and education. And then if you look at like the top billionaires, they're men and they just want to have more billionaire, and you're like, you can't even spend $1 billion. Like you don't even, us normies can't fathom $1 billion. $1 billion like doesn't even, like $1 trillion, like it's ridiculous.
So beyond our
comprehension. Like it is such an ethereal number. And so, but here you have like Men, they're like, I'm gonna get one, and it's just more money and more money and more money. And you're like, okay, which also begs the question, like, are men true providers and protectors? Like, if they are true providers and protectors, they would provide and protect everybody. They're not true providers and protectors. Like, that's one of my videos has gone viral. It still goes viral. I get comments on that thing all the time, where women are diving in and they're like, no, they're territorial. So they'll provide and protect for a woman that is theirs. And that's what I mean, also, like, dating men who aren't naturally providing and protecting, because they're not naturally like coming into the scene and being like, hey, I got you and your kiddo, and like, yeah, da, da, da. It's like, no, gotta get mine. And you're like, this is a scenario. It's like a weird thing, right? So I think that scarcity, right? So if we're talking about, like, the first rung or the first tenet that we're like really diving into, right, is like, women have been taught in the toxic system, and men both, but like, it's scarcity. It's like, I have to sacrifice something in order to get, I got to sacrifice something. And that's the scarcity resources.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if that's like even two separate things. Success by sacrifice being like one tier, and then like the whole idea of scarcity being like the second thing that we've really taken on from the system. Scarcity of time and resources and money. I think that being born from a patriarchal system, I mean, when you think of a matriarchy, and when we have never really experienced matriarchy firsthand, of course, but we have done research and we've done other podcast episodes on matriarchy and the matriarchal societies that have existed in the past and that currently exist, to be honest with you. But in those societies, there is a abundance mindset where the collective is taken care of. There's like a eye on everybody, there's into education, into the elderly, into the children. And so there's not this same sense of scarce of resources that we currently live in.
And I think what is important to also address when we're talking about scarcity of resources, we have scarcity of resources because consumerism is so high.
Yeah.
And, I said this on a different podcast episode, like, they're all coming together now, right? But like, the United States is the number one consumer in the world, and you would have to take the top 3 other nations and add them up to even get close to United States. But we're talking like Japan and China and India. Like, you would have to put all of their consuming of goods and services even to meet ours, right? So consumerism, like us as consumers, is off the charts. But what we're doing is, we're killing off our resources because of because of capitalism. So the capitalistic capitalist society means that we're going to consume at a higher rate. Again, prove value, prove worth, keep up with Joneses, like have the new latest trend, whatever, not have our trinkets that we buy last so we can buy more. And all of that is then perpetuated again by men at the top, right? So how they're looking at, and there was a shift of business structures and how business was done. And I think it was back in the early 80s. In the early 80s, it went from businesses feeling like they had a responsibility to their employees and instead looking at the bottom line. And when that shift happened for so many companies, like my mom was part of the largest layoff, I think, in AT&T history. And they just like got rid of everybody who was on the road to pensions and retirements and stuff like that, because if they let them go, they would make more. And so it became more, again, people at the top were more interested in the bottom line growing, in the stockholders having their shares rather than the employees. And when that shift happened, and again, it was around the 80s, like every single business kind of took suit. And so now we're in the repercussions of that, right? So I think maybe it was there that we felt like maybe companies did feel a responsibility to employees, but then that shifted.
Well, it's interesting. Like, there's so many things that come up when you say this, because first off, I didn't know that really happened. Second, I know that credit became a thing around I want to say the 80s. And I wonder if that coincided together. Like before, you would buy a home outright or you would buy a car outright and it would be a much lower price. It would be like, $6,000 rather than 20,000. But when the credit system was built, all of the prices of things skyrocketed because now you could apply for and qualify for a loan and make like the monthly payments on it. So I wonder if that coincides with each other. But
well, it's also like, government wants to find more ways for companies to make money, right? So if you look at tax code doesn't support a W-2 employee. Tax code supports businesses getting ahead. So if they can make more businesses. So, instead of having our insurance be run by the government, they have insurance be run by corporations. They think it's like better because it's going to be like competition. But what happens is you have one or two insurance agencies running all of the things. Now we've gone down some like real weird rabbit hole, like to even start talking about that. But my point is like the government wants other companies to be in charge. So they create jobs so that they create these things. And so you just have, okay, well, we're going to incentivize companies or we're going to focus on the company structure, but not like the people in general.
Totally. And it's interesting because I'll say millionaires used to focus on the people like Rockefeller or I can't remember other ones, but like building the public transportation or building libraries or like ways of making the community better that they used to do. But then if we look at like billionaires nowadays, they're not necessarily doing the same things or doing the same contribution.
Well, and again, I think what every company is looking at, right? And it's so funny too, because it's like our company, I want to train somebody in a methodology and I want them to not be dependent upon me, right? Like I actually don't want to work more. I want to work less. I want somebody to become master in the methodology. I want them to change their life. I want them to have the tools. I want them to become masterful. Like that has been my focus, right? And so, but if you look at, say, something like therapy, right? A therapist, you're going to go through talk therapy. Maybe you feel good one day, you walk in, she's like, let's talk about that thing from your childhood. And you're like, shit, no, I gotta fuck. I was feeling good and I'm gonna feel like shit. That's fine. And you're gonna like talk about it. And then you're gonna come back, you're gonna talk about it again. You're gonna come back and talk about it again. Like, does it ever go away? And so like, that's so the therapist is like, well, if I have you keep coming back, I make money. Right. So it's the same for like an iPhone. Like, okay, well, you have an iPhone, but we need to get you a better iPhone. Right. So we need you to keep coming back. It's the same for the healthcare system. It's like, well, if we give you preventative healthcare, then you'll be fine and you'll be well. But if you're sick, you're going to keep coming back. Right. So if you have like a washing machine that's going to like last for a lifetime, then you won't come back and buy it. So like literally, the people at the top running companies are interested in how do we have people keep coming back? And so in like, how do we just have people like self-sustain? So literally everything from the top down, everything that we touch, everything that we consume is connected to companies who aren't interested in like people's well-being. They're interested in, okay, how are we going to like keep this consumer on the hook? How are we going to have them come back? Also, I would say customer service is not that great in a lot of places. So now we just choose other things too. So, everything is attached to that. Everything.
Yeah. Well, I think everything that we've been talking about so far leads into our third point, which is we've been disconnected from trusting ourselves. We've been disconnected from our inner divinity. And so because of that, there's like a inherent self-worth that's missing from us. Like we seek validation outside of us. We people please, we doubt ourselves. We look for other people to tell us that we're doing a good job or that we're doing enough. And like all of that goes into like the consumerism that you were talking about. Like we're looking for something to fill something within inside of us. Like what is that energy that has us like want to keep consuming, want to keep purchasing, want to keep like looking for something else to fill like almost a hole inside to keep perpetuating that. And similar to Nope, I lost my train of thought. But like it's that inherent like looking for worth and value outside of ourselves rather than like knowing the worth and value and divinity that's within us.
Yeah, and it's an interesting juxtaposition because some people will say, well, money is the root of all its evil, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't go inside and they didn't look. And they aren't whole and complete inside either.
Mm-hmm.
They're just resisting the system that's there. They didn't find a new system.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's one way, right? The other way is what I'm a very conscious consumer. Like I think of, you know, do I want something new? Yes. What am I doing with my old? Who gets like my kid is now the recipient of all of my clothes. She's so excited, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, do I gift to Thread Up, or do I gift to thrift store, or do I give to some other, like, depending upon the clothes, right? I try to buy clothes that are going to last me a long time, right? So fabrics and materials that will last. And like, I take care of my things to the highest quality. So everything is like well cared for. So it doesn't, you know, they get maintenance and they don't break. And, you know, we tend to things. So as a consumer, that's what I'm constantly looking at. I'm looking at like the long game. You know, I'm looking at Mother Earth. I'm looking at how much I put into the garbage. I'm looking at how much goes to recycling. I'd rather reuse than recycle. You know, it's like I have such a tune in for that because I can see the system. You know, so, and if we're not going to use something, somebody's not, you know, it's like we're going to return it to the store almost immediately. You know, so if we do get something, it's like, and we like my daughter loves new stuff, so she wants to consume all the time, right? And so I do my best to like calm that down. So I feel like I'm a pretty responsible consumer. I know the things I like. I don't kind of like, I'm not looking to fill any holes. Now, if you have a hole, what you're going to do is you are going to find ways to fill the hole. And the hole is like feeling empty, feeling not good enough, feeling unworthy, right? And so then we fill it with material things potentially. My daughter does this when she's over at her dad's place. I like told her, I was like, my house is like probably 5 times the size of her father's. Like, no shit. Okay. It's 5 times the size of her dad's. And her room is double the size than her dad's. Everything that she gets from me ends up in his small place and it disappears. Excuse me. And it disappears. And I've gone through this a few times and I'm like, what is this phenomenon? You have a smaller place and you're going to take all this stuff from here and take it over there. It just eventually happens. It's like after like 3 months, you're like, where'd all your clothes go? And you're like, oh my God, they're all over at your dad's. Like, how is that even possible? And so like everything I buy her, and then she wants to buy more, right? Because it's not here. And I'm like, this is insane. And I just tune in. I'm like, over there in that energy field, there's some empty feeling where she's taking to try to fill up. And that's my best place I could like pinpoint it energetically. I'm like, so she feels empty over there. So she's taking things to try to feel full, which is also how she eats, right? Is like trying to consume to try to feel full. Instead of like here when she's like more mindful about food, mindful about her time, mindful about her energy, and like she's more balanced here. And I was just like, we gotta cut this out. Like, what is going It's like a wild phenomenon. So like for listeners listening, you know, that is if you find like you have lots of stuff around you, you know, like there's stuff, like what is it about the stuff that makes you feel better? What is it about things that make you feel better? And what if you had that already inherently in you? Maybe you wouldn't need the stuff.
It's a great inquiry to be in.
Yeah.
So when we look at like umbrella of being disconnected from our divinity or trusting ourselves, like it's not just about the consumerism and the stuff, but it's also looking for, we'll say, like validation outside of us, or when it comes to maybe people pleasing or wanting people to tell us we're doing a good job, wondering if we're doing enough or not doing enough, like this whole question and dance that we play, it comes from like being disconnected from ourselves and disconnected from the divinity that we have. Like if we were truly, truly connected to mind, body, and soul, knowing that we're an infinite being, knowing that we can create anything, that we have no limitations, like how powerful would we actually be? How powerful would we actually feel? And would we actually need to look for anything outside of us?
Yeah. And I think that's the goal of us working with our clients, right? Is
Yeah.
to have them have a strong sense of self. Like, who are you? Not who I say you are, not who your parents think you should be, not who society says you should be or should be doing or should be choosing or should be having, but like who inherently are you? And everybody is unique.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit like this journey of like, what makes me happy and what makes me feel fulfilled and like what do I actually enjoy doing and what should I be saying no to that I just like don't say no to, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like the more that you do that is where you're going to find that sense of self, you know?
Totally.
And that's where fulfillment comes.
Totally. And I think this also plays into the next piece that I want to share, which is the power hierarchy that's
Mhm.
created in a patriarchal framework. So, we have somebody at the top and somebody at the bottom. We can look anywhere in society and probably find that. You can look to the broligarchy and the one percenters at the top
Mhm.
and the lower middle class that are like struggling at the bottom. You can look to, in relationships, we typically have somebody in charge and somebody that's not in charge, and then who's running the show, who's not running the show. We can look to the current administration that we have right now in the United States. There's a whole power hierarchy happening, and it's like it's a whole competition of like who's better than, who's less than, who's in charge, who's not in charge, and like it's a system where there's only one person or one power at the top and like other people are on the bottom. And so with this system of hierarchy we've created, I'm trying to track where it came from, like, because I'm
Where
also
the
like,
hierarchy came from?
yeah, like where it started. And I feel like it goes back to an episode that we did earlier about the churches, like when
I mean, there's lots of
the
theories on where it came from, right? Like one that I was just reading about was like agriculture, right? So when
mm-hmm,
agriculture came along and instead of being nomads, right? So when we were nomads and we hunted and we gathered, women were mostly in charge of those systems. Like we were, women, the lineage got passed down from women
mm-hmm,
because it was we birthed the children. So the lineage was based off of the women. So weird.
mm-hmm,
And you may or may not have known like where, like who the father was or who is, you know what I mean? Like it could be kind of a crapshoot. And so when you could own, this is so crazy, when you could own cattle, when you could own horses, when you owned, the theory is like you started owning things, the female, if I'm going to own the female, like an ownership mindset, right? So think of that, that's like consumerism, an ownership.
mm-hmm,
And so you have this thing where you're like, I could own my partner. She needs to now have my name to show ownership, just like the land has to have my
mm-hmm,
name to show ownership, just like the livestock is mine. I own it. And so, like, it's an interesting juxtaposition that theory, right, is bouncing around. You're like, huh, okay, right. So,
mm-hmm,
along with religion and having or pastors or the religious I want to say dictator, the religious teacher, like at the
might not
top
be far off.
saying, this is the word of God. Like you go in there and you like learn, this is the word of God and this is what God means and this is what God says. And you're like, okay. And then you just kind of do it. Like that guy has all the power in the town,
Mm-hmm,
and you're like, okay, so we're just gonna like believe that guy. That sounds great, and so like those structures created different little hierarchical structures of who's in charge, you know,
yeah.
and those are all toxic and what we've been living under, and then they expanded and got worse.
Totally. And I think the word I was looking for was like the Crusades, like the Christian Crusades, where
Sure.
there was like a takeover of cultures. And the way that Christian Crusades were like, this is the right way, this is how it has to
Mhm.
be. And then there was like suppression or oppression of other cultures
Mhm.
and ways of being. And so then there was like, we're in charge now, we're taking over. And I wonder if that had any contribution to the current system. I mean, I'm sure it had some level of
Like
contribution to the current system.
1000%. And every like so, Christianity was based on killing people for Christianity's sake. It was based on killing off everybody who wasn't a believer or wasn't I remember our dad being like, you have to say Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, you're going to hell. And I was like, can we logically break that one down? Like, there's a lot of people that be going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And like, are we saying like you don't say it? Like, is it just the words? What if I speak a different language? Like, I was just
What if
like
you
poking holes.
say it, but then you don't believe it? Like,
Yeah,
does
like what
that
if you
still
just say it,
track?
but you don't believe it? It's like there were so many holes I wanted to poke in that shit. Anyways,
Yeah.
it's like, yes, so Christianity was founded on this premise of war, of better than, of competition, of killing, right? And you look at like the United States was established based off of war and
Mm-hmm.
killing, and then you go, and there's never been a time in history where we haven't been at war, whether we were we had a civil war, we were at war with each other. So we have
Mm-hmm.
that energy in our field. We were like, fuck you, Great Britain, so our first establishment of independence was a war. And then we've just always been fighting. So we're like
Yeah.
we're like America's like a petulant child who like won't stop throwing a temper tantrum. And you're like, could you just fucking grow up already? Like, we're all good. You're fine. It's like, I just want my ice cream. You're like, stop killing people. It's like, fine.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And like, and I think what's really interesting is if you look at there's a lot of propaganda about China, which I find is really interesting. But like, China has taken themselves, I think China and Japan, I want to say, I can't remember if it's both or just one, but they've been like, they haven't been at war for like 200 years or something. Like they
Mm-hmm.
haven't gone to war. And so what they've done instead of war is focused on technology and growth. And so here you have these very large countries who could be the number one consumers, but they're not,
Mm-hmm.
who have surpassed us in technological advances and systems that work for their people. Like I think China has the fastest rail. Have you seen this like rail
Yeah.
system?
It's
And you're
crazy.
like, it goes like 300 miles an hour or something like that. And you're just like, what the fuck? And so you're just like the technological advances in railway and in phones and drones and systems that support people in the culture because they're not fighting.
Mm-hmm.
They're not throwing temper tantrums all the time with other countries
Yeah.
or themselves or like
They're
fighting
focusing
amongst
on their
themselves.
people.
What's that?
They're focusing on their people.
Yeah, and you
And their
can't do that if you're fucking fighting all the time.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Totally. So I think the last portion I want to get into before we talk about like what we do about it, like as a whole, I think we can see there's been a disconnect from the feminine, like the feminine energy in a patriarchal framework. So whether it's a fascinating concept, and I think I've talked about it on another podcast episode, but it doesn't matter your gender. If you're a feminine man, like if you're a gay feminine man, you're seen as like less than a masculine woman or a masculine man.
Yes.
Or if you're a masculine woman, you're like more accepted or more acceptable in society. And so it's like a fascinating concept. It's not about the gender, it's really about the energy and like the soft, whether it's like a soft energy or feminine energy or like however you want to describe it. Like there's a suppression or an oppression or like a casting out or like it's not good to have. Like even
I think it's a hatred.
Hatred for sure. I mean, even women who are suppressing of their emotions and suppressing of like that side of them, the more feminine side of them, like no, I'm okay, no, I'm not emotional, no, it's whatever, like it's a whole suppression of like that magic and that softness and that intuition that we have, because it's like whether it's a hatred or whether it's a suppression or whether it's like a make wrong of that particular energy. Like I'm curious what your thoughts.
I mean, this is another can of worms. Like, so men get to dictate what's right and what's wrong in society, period. We don't actually get a say. And you'll find this in personal relationships, like me being married for however long I was married for. If I had an opinion on something, I had to prove my opinion to my ex-husband. I had to, like, it didn't matter what it was. Anything I would sense, anything I would see. I'm a brilliant, very intelligent woman. Very intelligent. And yet, here's this man who, like, if I say something, I have to prove it. So I would have a lengthy discussion about literally anything. It was exhausting. And it was because he and I unknowingly had this agreement that his fucking opinion was better than. Okay.
Mm.
So we just have to start with part of the patriarchal system puts us in a structure where men's opinions are better than. And we know this because men will have a half-assed crackpot with no evidence, bullshit comment, and they'll just be like, I'm right. And you're like, you have no evidence. You haven't looked at it. There's no fucking like information. And this is like our current administration.
Well, notice too, like in an office, there will be a woman that has an idea, but then it doesn't get heard, quote unquote, until a man says the same idea as if
Right.
he had it.
Exactly. And so men, I've even had, great men who like comment on things, and he's like, I will say the things for women in the office because nobody hears them unless I say them, but then I always credit back the woman. And he's just trying to like serve this like fucked up system. So first, if we just look at like, that's the structure. So when we talk about a toxic structure, we talk about patriarchal structure, like this is an inherent structure where men like know more or have more authority or like whatever, right? So if that's the structure, then when men are born and women are born, right? So you have like a young woman and you have a young man, what you're looking at is like, okay, how do I like what is more authoritative? Well, the little boy, men, they're more authoritative. They know more automatically. Little girls know less. They're not as smart, whatever. The bias is already that men are better. That's the bias. So if men are better, women are inferior. So if you were going to teach a man how to be a man, but you don't teach him anything about man, what the default is to teach a man to not be a woman. So you teach a man, we've heard this all over the place. I'm not saying anything anybody hasn't heard. Like you teach a man, like, don't be emotional. Don't show your feelings. Don't be a pussy. Like, buck up, be tough. That's how a man is taught to be a man. There's no emotional intelligence. There's no emotional regulation. So if a man spats out or a young boy spats out, oh, well, he's just being a boy. Like that's just how they are. And so there's this acceptance for emotional dysregulation and a hate, like, and I'm just going to say this, I'm going to say the part out loud, a hatred for anything that's feminine. So if you can hate the feminine, anything that's feminine, so pink, girly, emotion, whatever, then that means that you're being a good man. That's it. But we didn't teach men to be good men. We just said, don't be women. So if inherently men are walking around being trained to not be women, when they meet women who are being women, fully women, they don't like it because in the background, here comes your psychology for the day, team. In the background, unconsciously, they've been trained to hate everything that is woman. So they like actually women who are tougher, who don't show emotion, who like, do work things like men, like men love it when I'm like very busy working. They don't like it when I'm like soft and chill. And it's like, well, fuck, why would I be with you if I'm busy working? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Be soft and chill by myself. I don't need to be around you. Be busy and working too. Like, what are you bringing to me? And it's like, so the divine feminine is that magic, is when us women are soft, is when we can relax, is all of those things. But we've been taught none of that is okay.
Totally.
So anything that is feminine is like wrong. So it's like the deeper background structure. And men are always right. So men have said, then you should be 50-50. Come work like I work. Like if I'm on an app and a dude is like, I'm looking for a partner to da 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 and do.
Yeah. Yeah. So we look at like all these different things we've taken on in this particular patriarchal framework and the ways that we've given up ourselves, the way that we've sacrificed by to be successful, the way that we have stopped trusting our inner knowing and our inner divinity, the way that we have suppressed the feminine and like a hatred of the feminine that you mentioned. And so
Yeah.
when we look at like all these different things that we're taking on and the framework that we're living in, now we get to look at, okay, what do we do about it? We don't like just complaining to complain. Here we're here to illuminate, okay, these are all the unconscious ways and ways of living that we're in. What do we do about it? Not just feel stuck in it, but
Yes.
we can do something to change it. So I think first off, the identification is the first part. Like we can't do something to change it if we're not aware of what we're changing. So being able to identify it and bring it to the surface is the first part.
Yeah.
And like if you could give like two other
Yeah.
pathways or ways of.
Yeah, I think we're stepping into, like, I think humanity is stepping into a place of like true authenticity. And
Mhm.
so I know our listeners are primarily women, is to find what your truth is, right? So when we say you can have it all or you can have it all your way, that actually doesn't mean doing more. That means like have it all, like take a bath at 3 p.m. Like that's my
Mhm.
jam. Like have a life like that where you're not sacrificing self-care for something else. And I know that somebody's going to be like, I'm a single mom and I'm juggling all these things and like, you're fucking insane and go shove it up your, whatever. It takes some deconstructing for sure. But if you start to be authentic and be honest with yourself, like the first thing I noticed was I was taught that I shouldn't like pink. Pink is too girly. So for me, it was like accepting pink and liking pink and like even learning how to wear red lipstick was like a big
Mhm.
deal because all of those things were. I remember wearing makeup one time. My mom's like, "You look like a whore." And I was like, "What the fuck?"
Mm.
Like that was what I was told. And it was like, okay, so I'm not supposed to wear makeup, but I'm supposed to be pretty. I'm like not supposed to this, but I am supposed to, like, it's that's the Barbie dialogue. It's like, it's fucking insane. So it's
Yeah.
finding what is authentic to you, like going on a journey to find what is authentic to you. Like what I was out, I remember this. I think it was CC's 9. So it was probably like 7 years ago. I was like, I want to wear red lipstick. I really want to wear red lipstick. And it was like a journey to find like a fucking red lipstick and then like to put it on and not be like scared of myself when I had it on. And we've had
Mhm.
clients who will comment and be like, I don't like your lipstick. And I'm like, you haven't accessed your divine feminine.
Mm.
You'll like
Mhm.
it when you access your divine feminine, because divine feminine is like an allowance of everything. We're not judgy.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter if you're male or female or masculine or feminine or whatever it is. It's like, what is the authentic part of you? And start allowing yourself to discover, write it
Yeah.
down, honor, like go on a journey to like find that part of yourself, because those are the parts that we've been taught to hate.
Well, I think there's something interesting that happens around 8 or 10 years old. Every person, every client I talk to, it's like 10 years old. Something
Mhm.
happens where you unconsciously take on this way of survival of life. Like for me, it was this moment in fifth grade, and I unconsciously decided, like, I have to fit in. I can't be my authentic self. I have to show up this certain way, and I need to be accepted by the kids, and I like X, Y, Z, right? And so every moment after that was like, I want to be accepted by other people. And it was a suppression of the things that I liked because I want other people to like me. And I feel like there's something similar that happens for most people is like what you're suppressing of what you actually love that actually fulfills you, that you're passionate about, that you don't have access to anymore. And maybe that's like a great inquiry and exploration of being is like, what did you love as a kid? What actually lights you up? What makes you feel most fulfilled that you could like spend more time on and dedicate that more time to right
Yes.
now.
Yes, 1000%. 1000%. So it's always like, going down that journey is a liberating experience, if you will. So you can
Mm-hmm.
look at, what do I enjoy doing? How do I want to spend my time? Who do I enjoy being around? Who do I need to say no to? How do I embrace more of me? Like that is actually the divine.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a
Yeah.
set of actions or qualities. It's actually like the freedom and the liberation of who you truly are.
Yeah. And I would say like that level of selfishness for women in particular, the selfishness of your time and like going inward, and how much time do you actually dedicate to yourself where there's not a kid running around, or you're not scrolling on your phone, or you're not taking care of somebody else? Like, what if you started with 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes of night of just you, no phone, no nothing, just time with yourself, like, and allow yourself the luxury of taking care of yourself, and like what that actually means for you and what that actually looks like for you.
I love that. Yeah, I'm an advocate.
I can tell. Awesome. Well, is there anything else before we close out the episode today? Anything else that you would like to share with our listeners as like a takeaway or something they can practice?
No, I mean, I think when we're deconstructing the patriarchal systems and the toxic frameworks that we have been conditioned to live in, it's in our DNA, it's in our cells, it's in every person, every being that you come into contact with. Everybody is just conditioned to, unconsciously keep taking that step forward. So when we're deprogramming ourselves and we're activating the divine feminine, I think there's this opportunity to have grace with yourself and grace with other people, and also be a fierce advocate for it.
Totally.
How fierce can you be? How fierce will you let yourself be? Because divine feminine doesn't mean I'm soft and I'm quiet all the time. I mean, I'm soft and quiet when nobody's in my house. I'm not on calls and whatever. But like, if there's something I need to advocate for, I can be loud and crazy, and that's okay. And so it's like allowing yourself to be all of that is part of the divine feminine.
Totally, totally. And I would say it's not an individual journey. Like, it is a, I don't want to say collective journey, but it's like being in communion with other people and activating it with your community and with other people. Like, that's part of it too. It's not just you being by yourself trying to figure it all out. And so that's one of the reasons we're creating the Rise of the Divine in March of next year. That's why we're coming together, activating a new way of living, being able to deconstruct all these different ways of being and ways of living. And that's one of the intentions we have of coming together in community. So if you would like to join us, we have link to get your ticket now in the description. We would love to see you in person. We would love to come together in community with you. And Tamara, anything you want to share about that?
We're in early bird pricing. Like, you want to get a ticket, you should come get a ticket. We were just talking about it with our clients on the call this week, and they were like, wait, what? This is I'm like, I know, it's insane. So we have early bird pricing. Do we want to give them
We'll give them a coupon code. If they are a listener of the podcast, we'll give them a little 50% off.
Okay, so we got 50% off of the early bird ticket price right now. We have 3 locations that we're looking at: California, Florida, and Sedona. So we'll either be in the mountains of Sedona with the amazing vortices, or we'll be on the beaches somewhere. I'm packing up my shit today so we can go look at some hotels next. So I'm starting to do hotel site visits. But if this is like, if you want to have conversations, you want to activate something new, you want to step into the new paradigm, that's what we're doing. We're like leaving behind the toxic systems. We're stepping into something new. This isn't going to be like jam-packed conversations all day long. This is like, we're going to integrate. We're going to do some chillaxing. We're going to have meditation and yoga. There's going to be longer lunches. You're going to have time to be with people and take care of you. That's the whole point of the 3 days. And it'll be around March 20th. The reason I say that, maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I don't know. I think still might be Friday, Saturday. I think it still might be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Anyways, but March 20th is the equinox. So we're like going to kick it off with the spring equinox, which is the time to begin your creation and begin your new year anyways, from a lunar perspective, which is actually
from the feminine,
the divine feminine, like calendar system. So we have all that happening. And so if you're like, yeah, I'm pulled, it doesn't even matter if I'm flying into California, Arizona, or Florida, I don't care. Apparently a lot of people don't want to do Florida. Apparently that's what I'm feeling.
It may not be Florida.
It may not be Florida.
It's on the list.
Every time we say the word Florida, somebody's like, cringe. Okay, I get it. Okay. It wouldn't be like normal Florida. It'd be like Naples, Florida. But anyway, if you're like, it doesn't matter because I want to be with women, I want to activate this shit, I want to leave behind the whole systems, I'm telling you, tickets right now are ridiculously inexpensive, and we're going to gift you a 50% off coupon. So you can get it. I'm not covering hotels. That'll be on you, but I am negotiating great room rates. So we will have group booking rates if you would like to do that as well.
Yes, so I'll put the link in the description. Coupon code will be FRIEND50 in the description as well, so you get 50% off. If you would also like to join our online community in the meantime and be part of activating a new way of living together, I also have the link to join us in our free community. So you are welcome to join us there. Until next time, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, Ronnie at thebeyondhumanmethod.com, and we will see you all next time. Keep making magic, y'all.